Joe Biden sure seems to be getting under the president's skin after he launched his campaign with an attack on Trump's claim there were very fine people on both sides in Charlottesville. Biden doubled down again today on The View.
I wrote an article at the time in the Atlantic magazine back when Charlottesville happened and saying that, this is not who we are. There's an American creed. It's about decency, honor, including everyone, leaving no one behind. But the idea to compare these racists and not condemn them and neo-Nazis and compare them to people who were genuinely decent Americans coming forward and saying, stop this. It was like, I don't remember that ever happening in an administration before in well over 100 years.
Decency, honor, including everyone. We would all like to think that's who we are, but is it really? I want you to compare that to what we heard from the President of the United States today, defending one of the worst moments of his presidency when white supremacists and neo-Nazis overran Charlottesville.
Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us! Jews will not replace us!
And when Heather Heyer was murdered.
Oh, I've answered that question, and if you look at what I said, you will see that that question was answered perfectly. And I was talking about people that went because they felt very strongly about the monument to Robert E. Lee, a great general, whether you like it or not. He was one of the great generals. I've spoken to many generals here, right at the White House, and many people thought of the generals, they think that he was maybe their favorite general. People were there protesting the taking down of the monument of Robert E. Lee. Everybody knows that.
Everybody doesn't know that, okay? And we're going to talk much more about this. We're going to give you a fact check on that and why the president is saying what he's saying. Make no mistake, the president is saying this today because Joe Biden hit him right where it hurts yesterday with a gut punch to the dark underbelly of racism this president has both stoked and defended and that he traffics in. So now today, this is Donald Trump's story. All of a sudden, just remember, he's never used that defense before, ever. Why not? Because it's not the truth. He's lying. Revisionist history. Donald Trump says the question was answered perfectly. Of course he does. He says many generals come to the White House and tell him Robert E. Lee is their favorite. Okay, tell us which ones. Come on the program. I'd like to hear generals tell that to the American people, that Robert E. Lee was their favorite. Okay, maybe these generals exist and maybe that's what they say. Or maybe those generals hang out with those FBI officials that Sarah Sanders told the American people were thrilled the president fired Comey, only to have to come clean to the special counsel that they were all made up, that it was made up. Here's the thing. The president would like to distract you from the fact that white supremacists and neo-Nazis openly paraded their hate on the streets of Charlottesville. But that is gaslighting. Gaslighting by the light of those tiki torches. Let's listen again to the president's words in the wake of that shocking, violent, deadly neo-Nazi rally on the streets of an American town.
Neo-Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as neo, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name.
This was never about a statue of Robert E. Lee. Okay, again, let's give you some facts. The permit application straight up called it a Unite the Right rally. According to an affidavit filed by the Charlottesville Police Department in the days leading up to the rally, authorities knew who was coming and who to expect. Hundreds of members of the Klan, among other white supremacists and alt-right groups. ProPublica reported that the Daily Stormer, a neo-Nazi website, encouraged rally attendees to bring shields, pepper spray, and fascist flags and flagpoles. The trouble began the night of Friday, August 11th, when hundreds of white nationalists marched in a torchlight parade across the University of Virginia campus, as far as a statue of Thomas Jefferson, where, according to the Washington Post, they surrounded a small group of students of color and white students, the marchers making monkey noises at them and chanting, "White Lives Matter." The next morning, the marchers flooded Lee Park, waving Confederate and Nazi flags. That's where the statue of Robert E. Lee sits. Those are the people who were there that day. Look at those very fine people, huh? After that violence spilled into the streets of Charlottesville, ending in the death of Heather Heyer. So this was not a rally about a statue attended by some nice people, but possibly misguided history enthusiasts that was crashed by the neo-Nazis and white supremacists. The bad guys organized it. They promoted it. They attended it. And then it turned deadly. So now let's talk about Robert E. Lee. You know, the one that he says is the general's favorite, Robert E. Lee. The fact is, he waged war on the United States, a war that tore this country apart, killed some 750,000 soldiers. He was a brutal slave owner who fought for the continued enslavement of millions of African Americans. In a moment, I'm going to talk to you to one general, one of General Lee's descendants, who says that's nothing to be proud of. He's right. That is nothing to be proud of. And by the way, you know, Robert E. Lee was captured, right? I thought he liked heroes who weren't captured. Some people point to his successes and his bravery on the battlefield. But for what cause? The cause that ripped this country in two and almost destroyed it. The cause that would have kept me and anybody else with black skin enslaved. Yet the president insists Robert E. Lee was one of the great generals. And that's not the only, let's say, questionable thing he said today.
I'm a student of history.
Sorry about that. A student of history? Okay. I want to take a look at the president's version of history. Let's go back to Black History Month, 2017. When a White House breakfast, at a White House breakfast, the president said this about Frederick Douglass, who escaped slavery to become one of this country's most famous abolitionists.
Frederick Douglass is an example of somebody who's done an amazing job and is being recognized more and more, I notice.
It's almost as if he didn't know who Frederick Douglass was. It's almost as if he didn't know that Frederick Douglass died in 1895, 122 years before that Black History Month breakfast. But there's more. Remember when he said this about Abraham Lincoln?
Great president. Most people don't even know he was a Republican, right? Does anyone know? A lot of people don't know that.
Actually, a lot of people do know that Lincoln was a Republican. It's kind of what they teach you in elementary school history. That Lincoln was a Republican. Most people. In fact, he was the first Republican president. I hope he's watching so that you can get a history lesson, because this is like maybe the most history that he's gotten recently or knows about. But that all seemed to come as news to this president. And then there is this about another president, Andrew Jackson.
I mean, had Andrew Jackson been a little bit later, you wouldn't have had the Civil War. He was really angry that he saw what was happening with regard to the Civil War. He said, there's no reason for this. People don't realize, you know, the Civil War, you think about it, why? People don't ask that question. But why was there the Civil War? Why could that one not have been worked out?
So much to unpack there. Okay, so first of all, Andrew Jackson died in 1845, 16 years before the Civil War began. And like I said, the war was fought for the continued enslavement of millions of African Americans. That's why it could not have been worked out. So when this president says that he is a student of history, sure, not Civil War history, because he got that completely wrong. And those are the facts, Jack. So stop this revisionist history about, oh, the president didn't say this, he didn't say that, he never said very fine people. Those are the facts. Stop it. Stop gaslighting people. As a matter of fact, this is the first time that the president has ever used that defense. Why? Because his apologists are floating it and putting it out there as if it were fact. And all of those people who are online saying, oh, you're getting it wrong about the president, the liberal media, that is a lie.